my honor to welcome the President of Finland, the First Lady of Finland, on their visit to Latvia. I should say that for me personally, this is a historic visit, in fact, because this is the first incoming state visit for me as the president, and I'm happy that it is the Finnish president who coincidentally is paying the first state visit. Finland is our close friend and ally, our political, economic, cultural, and I should say also sporting ties are very, very close and very dynamic, and we not only discussed very important security challenges and vital economic cooperation issues, but we also looked back at the Eurobasket competition in Riga. We both went to the Finnish-Greek game, and I can only repeat that the whole Latvia was holding its breath for the Finnish team during the game, and we were very happy to see the fighting spirit that the Finnish squad demonstrated during the competition, during the tournament here in Riga. But undoubtedly, of course, during the meeting we discussed at great length security in the region, security of Ukraine. We also talked about the security of the Baltic Sea region, broader Baltic Sea region, and I should say that President Stubb and I, we highly appreciate the cooperation that we have developed with Finland when it comes to military cooperation since 2023, when Finland acceded to NATO, for example. It has already resulted in some practical activities as well. The security of the Baltic Sea region and Baltic Sentry, which was launched after several incidents with underwater cables, with underwater infrastructure, and Baltic Sentry has proven to be very efficient. I mean, this cooperation when it comes to securing the Baltic Sea. We also discussed the incursion of drones in the Polish airspace as well, and I would like to also specifically underline that NATO has made several steps to create a similar to the Baltic Sentry mission, which is called the Eastern Sentry, and further protection or the security of the eastern flank airspace would require transformation of the Baltic Air Policing mission into Baltic Airspace Defense mission. Not only policing mission. So when it comes to defense cooperation, it's not only focused or built around NATO. We also share defense industry. Patria, for example, which is located in Valmiera, is a good example of close military industrial cooperation with Finland. Tomorrow we'll visit the National Armed Force Training Camp in Liepāja to discuss bilateral and multilateral military cooperation in scope of the Liepāja training camp or base. And last but not least, we discussed at great length the strengthening of the defense capabilities following the decisions taken in the summit in Hague. 5% of GDP on defense spending is a good target, but you don't really sort of use a percentage as a weapon. You need weapons, physical weapons, and this is the area in which we need to develop quite significantly. This year we'll reach 4% of GDP on defense spending. In terms of defense spending, we have a clear path for the progress towards 5% of the GDP, but there are a lot of challenges to overcome on the way towards 5%. We talked about support to Ukraine as well. We discussed political support. We discussed practical support to Ukraine. For example, this year, 42 Patria armored vehicles will be handed over to the armed forces of Ukraine this year. And we also talked about drone coalition, international drone coalition for Ukraine. And on behalf of Latvia, I promised to join the Finnish-led civilian shelter coalition. Because it is not only an additional support to Ukraine, but it is also vital for us to be aware of what our civilian protection infrastructure comprises today and how it needs to be developed in future. We'll learn both from Finland and Ukraine on how to build those shelters, and we will work very closely with Ukraine and Finland in this area. So this is a cooperation which will go both ways. Will not only help the others, but will also receive a lot of assistance and a lot of advice from the others. We also talked about further cooperation in defense and military industry when it comes to air defense systems, anti-drone systems. We talked about economic cooperation in the field of education and culture. Let me leave some of the topics for later conversations and meetings as well, so I won't mention everything that we discussed, but I would like to reiterate that our cooperation on the bilateral level and Nordic-Baltic level, which in fact in recent years has developed as a good format, as a good framework for enhancing political security and economic cooperation, and our cooperation within the European Union and NATO is excellent when it comes to Finland. So usually state visits like these are much more focused on practical issues, on real decisions, and also the symbolic highest level commitment to the friendship and cooperation between countries on all levels in all the possible ways, and also through different ceremonies, which shows that we are close friends. So, Alex, it's over to you. In fact, I do suppose that media are expecting to hear from the Finnish president, my Finnish counterpart, although what I would like to underline, Mr. Stubb is currently very active, playing an active role internationally, supporting Ukraine, working with the American, Ukrainian, and European allies, and these are the efforts that Mr. Stubb will be fully supported by Latvia. So it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Edgars, and thank you for the hospitality that you and your team have showed us here on our first state visit to Riga. You will all know that Edgars and I go a long way back. We pretty much have a similar background in having been focused on foreign policy for most of my life. I managed to be foreign minister only for 3 years, unlike Edgars, who was there for 12 years. But we've pretty much known each other for the past 14, 15 years and have kept up contact in so many different ways. And I was also very happy and thankful to host Edgars at the Kultaranta talks at my summer residence this summer, where we had a good conversation together with Estonian President Alar Karis about world affairs. Now, the Baltic Sea has brought Finland and Latvia together for a long time, and we can go all the way back to the Viking Age. But the truth is that what binds us is very much values and interests, not only after the end of the Cold War inside the European Union, but now in the strongest military alliance in the world in the form of NATO. Our common history is one of cooperation on security. And I think that this state visit shows our appreciation for cooperation with Latvia, bilaterally of course, but also in multilateral fora, including what Edgars just mentioned in the form of NB8. I think this sort of combination of Nordic and Baltic states, which is values-based and interest-based, will strengthen in the coming years. It is strong already now, and when you start including Poland and Germany in it, you see a very strong values-based security entity up here in northeastern Europe. There's only so much a small country like Finland or Latvia can do alone, but we can do a lot together. Together we can deter and defend against the threats, both military and non-military, which we see coming from Russia. The President and I had a good conversation about not only the security situation in our region, but also Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine, a conversation also about the change in world politics, and we even touched issues linked to the Middle East, not least Israel and Palestine. But as we all know, Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine is our war. Russia's escalation of its war in Ukraine to include incursions of European airspace is simply unacceptable and calls for a clear response. That's why I welcome the actions undertaken by NATO in the form of Eastern Sentry. And of course, if you look at what happened in the margins of Finnish territorial waters at the end of December last year, NATO was able to create an immediate response in the form of the Baltic Sentry. And NATO has now done the same thing with Eastern Sentry in making sure that similar incursions don't happen on the eastern flank by setting up strong air defenses. The stability of the Baltic Sea is of fundamental importance, and Finland and Latvia have, of course, separately and jointly made efforts to strengthen the security in our region and all of Europe. Both Latvia and Finland have kept investing in security and defense. We need to send a strong message that all of Europe takes its defense and security seriously. The threat from Putin's Russia will not diminish even when Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine ends. As Edgars mentioned, our countries have strong defense material and defense industry cooperation that can be further deepened. The CAVS program of Patria was mentioned as a good example, and again we see the spillover effect with over 40 Latvian paid Patria vehicles going over to Ukraine. And I'm sure that we'll work on other similar projects. In many ways, I would argue, finally, that Finland and Latvia are leading the way, building Europe to be a coherent and capable geopolitical actor. The bonds of Finland and Latvia have forged in the decades will ensure that together we're prepared for whatever lies ahead. And I just want to finish by the fact that we right now live in very uncertain times, and we have to, as societies, have the capacity to deal with uncertainty. There are things coming at us day in and day out which we're not used to, certainly not since the end of the Cold War. And I think resilience is the key, and our capacity to act to the unknown together. And I think in the past few years we've shown that it works. I think one of the first people that I always reach out to if something happens is in Finland is the President of Latvia, and I'm sure we'll continue to do that in the future as well. Thank you very much. Paldies.
Thank you. Now we'll open the floor for questions. Gatis Suhavecis, please.
Latvia, question for President Stubb. You have developed a close relationship with President Trump. If you have discussed regional security, may I ask what is your impression about President Trump's commitment to defend the Baltic states from possible Russian aggression? Thank you.
I think the United States is very committed to security in northeastern Europe. We have seen President Trump on numerous occasions pushing all of us to increase our defense